Hey, welcome to the Sunday English Literature class. Today I'm going to discuss about the major features of the Pilgrims of Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. The Canterbury Tales is based on Boccaccio's Decameron. 29 pilgrims meet at Tabard Southwark. There is 31 in total, including our poet Chaucer and Harry Bailey, the host of the inn. There are 24 stories in the Canterbury Tales. Two tales are told by Chaucer, Tales of Sir Topas and Tale of Melibus, which is prose. The Canterbury Tales begins with the Knight's Tale and ends with Parson's Tale. So first of all, the Knight. Knight is a member of household group, along with his son, squire, and yeoman. He was the first to arrive at Tabardin after Chaucer. The knight is considered as an epitome of chivalry. He has fought over 15 religious battles and he has widely traveled. He tells a first tale. He tells a tale of Palamon and Arcite in a duel to marry Emily. Arcite wins but is thrown off a horse and dies. Palamon marries Emily. And this story is taken from Boccaccio's Tessida. Next is the squire, who is the son of the knight. He is fresh as a month of May. He is a lover and lusty bachelor. He has curly hair. He slept no more than doth a nightingale. That's how Chaucer describes about squire. He has fought battles for winning his lady loves. And he tells an oriental tale of a falcon talking to Canace about her husband's adultery. The prioress name is Eglantine, Madame Eglantine. She is romantic, pleasant, and amiable. She had fine table manners. She never let a morsel fall from her lips. She never dipped her finger too deep in the sauce, very formal while eating. He wiped her mouth clean and there was no grease on her cup. She revealed her forehead. She wore a corsel rosary with green beads and a brooch on which was the letter A. Amor vincit omnia, which means love conquers all. She had a few dogs whom she loved more than human beings, and she would weep at the sight of a dead mouse. She was not that much concerned to a human. She's accompanied by 3 priests and a nun. Next is the monk. Monk is a manly man. To be an abbot able. He has a shiny bald head and face. His eyes were bright and shone like a furnace. He did not follow the dull routine of prayer, study, and fasting, even if he was a monk. And he loved hunting. Next is the friar, who is a wanton and a merry guy. He belonged to mendicant order. He was interested in love affairs of young people. He married many women. His bag was full of pins and knives, which was kept for ladies for giving them as gifts. And he plays fiddle. His neck was as white as lily. And the friar's name is Herbert. Next is a pardoner. Pardoner implies a world of moral hypocrisy. He's a good storyteller. He has yellow hair. He's homosexual. And he issued indulgences and sells fake pardons. He sings, hymns and relics. Next is a summoner. Summoner is pardoner's companion. He was hot and wanton as a sparrow. That's how Chaucer describes him. He's a dishonest person. His face is full of pimples, and he has scaly eyebrows. And he took bribes and was disdainful of the teachings of the church. The parson is an ideal priest. He's very pious and devoted to duty. He's not money minded. He always asked himself, if gold rust, what would iron do? The next is the clerk of Oxford. He's devoted to the study of philosophy. He wore threadbare clothes, was a lover of books, was very polite, and his tale is a reply to the wife of Bath's tale and is about the patient wife Griselda. Next is a merchant. Merchant is a wealthy businessman, but he was heavily in debt too. He has forked beard, and he wore rich and multicolored clothes. He's a newly and unhappily married man. Next is the sergeant of law. He's a very wise and also very suspicious of everything. He has very vast knowledge of law and can cite cases as far back as William the Conqueror's time. He's a social climber. Next is Franklin. Franklin is a man of law's companion. He's a wealthy farmer. His beard was as white as daisy. And he was called as the son of Epicurus because he was always in a merry state. He was a very good householder. Meat and wine are so plenteous in his house that they are said to, snow. He kept fat partridges and many fish. Anyone who goes his house will get, a full stomach feast. His tale is a Breton lady story set in Brittany. Next is the five guildsmen. The five guildsmen are artisans and are newly rich, representing the urban middle class. They are a haberdasher, a carpenter, a weaver, a dyer, and a tapestry maker. Their sword sheaths were tipped in silver, and they are accompanied by the cook. They were dressed in uniform, and their wives liked to be called madams. Next is the wife of Bath. Wife of Bath's name is Alison. She had gap tooth, which is a sign of gluttony and lavishness. She was deaf in one ear because of the slap she got from her previous husband. She was expert in weaving and embroidery. She had wide hat, pleated cloak, scarlet stockings, and high quality fabric kerchief. She had 5 husbands and also many lovers. She always wanted to be the first to make a donation to the poor. She traveled widely to Italy, Spain, and Jerusalem thrice. She rode her horse well, and she loved to tell romantic tales and gossips. Next is the physician. The physician was expert in his profession, and but he has no knowledge about the Bible. He loved gold. He dressed in bright red and blue gown, and he eats little food, meager food. Next is the reeve. Reeve's name is Oswald. Oswald lived in a town called Bladwelly. He had tonsured head. He has lean legs, and he manages estates and full charge of sheep, cattle, dairy, swine, horses, poultry, etc. He could foretell the harvest. He was very good in, foretelling the climate. He was a good carpenter. He had an undersized horse which was called a Scot, and he was very strict in his profession. Next is the shipman. Shipman comes from Dartmouth. He wore a coarse gown and hung a dagger on a cord about his neck. He was very bold and prudent person. He was brown in complexion, and his ship was called Magdalene. Next, the yeoman. Yeoman wore a coat and a hood of green and carried a bow and a sheaf of shiny, sharp arrows fitted with peacock feathers under his pouch. He knew all the techniques of carpentry. He carried a sword and shield on one side and a spear shaped dagger on the other side. He wore a shining silver picture of Saint Christopher on his breast. The yeoman is compared to Robin Hood. Next is the manciple. Manciple worked at a college for lawyers, and he had more than 30 masters who were skilled lawyers. Next is a miller. Miller is a short, stout fellow with big muscles and bones. He has a broad beard, red as a sow or fox, and his mouth was big as a furnace. His name is Robin, and he is very fond of telling indecent tales. He steals corn, disrupts the host storytelling order, and insists on telling the second tale. The first tale is said by Knight, and the second is the miller. And he tells a bawdy fable. Next, the plowman. Plowman is Parson's brother. He's a very lowly laborer and is very sincere and humble person, pious, and he donates regularly to the church. The cook was employed by the guildsman, and his name is Roger. The narrator pities him for the running sore on his shin. Next is the host. The host is a guide to the pilgrims. He is very bold and wise. He quarrels with the pardoner when he tries to sell fake pardons, and he makes fun of the cook's drunken state. His name is Harry Bailey. He intervenes Chaucer when saying a funny tale. And the narrator is Chaucer himself. He is a very fat, sociable, and naive person. He is a master of irony. He says that the wife of Bath led an honorable life and goes to describe her lavishness, says the summoner is gentle and kind, and goes on to talk about his taking bribes and seducing girls. The feature of Chaucer's work is that it is very descriptive in nature. We can say that each and every pilgrim is described in a very keen manner. Each and every minute things in their dress is even described by Chaucer, so that sharpness in his observation can be seen from the narration. Then there is lyricism, there is swiftness in narration. Even minute details are being described. There is a perennial interest in humanity in Chaucer, which makes him describe each and every person in among the pilgrims, and all of them belong to different status of the society. That's why we can say that it's a gallery. It's a gallery of England can be seen through these pilgrims. So that's all about the very important features are being discussed here about each pilgrims, and the next class will discuss about the major tales said by these pilgrims. Thank you. Happy Sunday.